Ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to get on to our next session, of course, of the CEO's Roundtable on Navigation Uncertainty, Key Skills for Future Leaders. And with that, I would like to introduce to our moderator for the session, Mr. Ambarish Dasgupta. Mr. Ambarish Dasgupta is the senior partner and founder of Intueri Consulting LLP with over 30 years of experience in management consulting. Prior to founding Intueri, he had several prominent roles, including partner and national leader of consulting at both KPMG India and PwC India. I would request Mr. Ambarish Dasgupta to kindly come on stage, sir. And our two other speakers, Mr. Viveck Chaudary, Vice President and Chief of Staff, CMD Office, Vikram Solar Limited. Mr. Viveck Chaudary is the Vice President, of course, I've already said that, and he's a part of the Vikram Solar Group leadership team and is responsible for driving growth, innovation, and excellence. And also join us is Mr. Sandeep Kumar, MD, TSDPL. Mr. Sandeep Kumar has over 30 years of work experience with the Tata Group, having joined Tata Steel as a graduate trainee in 1991. He has handled various responsibilities and has worked in different cities and countries. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sandeep Kumar, MD, TSDPL, and of course, Mr. Viveck Chaudary. Kindly join us on stage.
So I thank CMA. And I thank particularly Mr. Kapoor for having me here for moderating the session, which is on the theme, navigating the uncertainty, the expectation from the future leaders for tomorrow. I compliment CMA also for every year taking on subjects of such innovative, futuristic, and thought-provoking in nature. Now, since we are all talking about the new generation leaders and the next leaders, so just to start with a little story on a lighter side. As I was sitting in my office when Mr. Kapoor invited me with the subject line, so I was sitting and thinking about what exactly to say for my moderation. So one of the younger people, the so-called new generation leader of around 35, 36, stepped into my room and asked me, what are you thinking on? So I said, this is the subject on which I'm going to moderate, and this is really starring my mind. To which this guy asked me, have you read P.G. Wodehouse? I said, yes, but why? Then he said that in one of the novels, P.G. Wodehouse has mentioned that there are some minds which are like a soup served from a poor kitchen. Lesser it is starred, it is better. And then this new generation guy left my room. So that's the kind of an indication that the people who are now coming into the leadership, I mean, their arrogance or disrespect or loyalty, their wit, their intelligence, as well as their knowledge. Now, there are, as we all know, there have been 6 generations. I mean, we had the first generation that we used to call in corporate was the great generation, then silent generation. And I think we, mainly the people between the 1945 to 1964 born people, are called the baby boomer generation. Then we had Gen X, then we had millennial, then we had Gen Z, then we had Gen Alpha, which is going now, people born in 2013. So 6 or 7 such generation. In this room, I'm seeing mainly from an intersection of few baby boomers like me, but primarily from millennial, Gen X, Gen Z type of people. I do not see much of the previous one, like the silent or the great generation. But whichever representative or whichever generation we actually pick up, the baby boomer or even the previous generation, any successful leader during that time will never admit that there was no uncertainty in his time. Everyone will say, even if I talk to my father, even if I talk to our grandfather, they will say that their times was the worst times. They had uncertainty of all kinds at that time, and they had to survive. And similarly, as we are moving in my time, I'm saying we had uncertainty, and as we are moving in tomorrow, we are saying there will be many other uncertainties which will be unfolding. Then where exactly is the uncertainty that possibly the millennial to the Gen Alpha will actually be facing, which the others have not, but they all felt that there was a significant degree of uncertainty that they also had to go through. It may be that the uncertainty remains, but the magnitude has changed. It may be that the uncertainties are no more linear or one-dimensional in nature, maybe multiple dimensions in nature, as we call in the management framework like a pastel, 6 dimensions: politics, economics, social, technology, environment, and legal. Maybe all 6 dimensions have suddenly started to bring uncertainties together, which could be a different case than what they have faced. Maybe the unknown unknowns have increased, the uncertainties of the unknown, we don't even know what are the known. Business models, maybe the technology, the newer things, of course, in the T dimension, AI, the cognitive abilities of machines, the quantitative computing, the quantum computing, and all these things are bringing some newer dimensions, increasing the degrees of the uncertainties. The one dimension which also has significantly brought in uncertainty is the younger generation themselves, like their activism, their social preferences, their divestment programs, as we are seeing in US. I mean, not shunning products which is being, or products which is actually leading to any of the Middle Eastern crises, to an Israeli strength. So there could be many such dimensions which have actually come up, which we have not seen earlier. One of the person whom I was asking that what kind of uncertainty do you actually face or do you think is new? He said, of course, many things is new, but today I also do not even know the competitor with whom I am actually fighting or the stakeholder with whom I am actually interacting, whether at that end, whether he is a human being or an anthropomorphic and human being type people. So am I actually interacting with a human being or not? That is another degree of uncertainty which possibly has now come up. Now, I was just trying to make a little survey to help my panelists also of the present demographic situation of the worldwide leaders. Now, that is a very interesting data that came out. From 2005 to 2030, we are seeing that the CEO age or the MD age is actually moving from 58 to 45. So making the leaders also by 2030 is moving more to an average age of 45 from 58. Fortune 500 female ratio in 2010 was 30%, 3%, which in 2030 is going to be 30%. So a huge amount of inclusivity from a gender perspective coming in by 2030. Fortune 500, the colored CEOs, I mean, just bringing out the white supremacy from 210 to 2030, less than 2 to 28% of color leaders. The traditional MBA occupying the boardroom, 82%, and this is global, not just in India, to 40%, the traditional MBA coming down. The tech experts, 12% to 70%, digital, AI, savvy in that, computer science engineer, non-computer science but tech savvy, from 12 to 70. Geographically, North American leaders from 68 going down to 52% from 2010 to 2030. Asia Pac moving up from 18 to 32. So then Asia Pac behavioral part, the philosophy, the religion, as you can understand, significantly varies from a North American style. So one coming down from 68 to 52, other going up from 18 to 32. Baby boomer, my generation, our generation, mid-40s, mid-40s born to 1964, moving down from 78 to 32. Gen Z moving up from 10 to 40. Now these data, I don't think you need to all remember the data, itself shows that how much the leadership demography will going to change. So therefore there is not just an uncertainty for outside, that a leader will actually have to tackle. The leadership nature itself also will bring in uncertainty. There are inclusivity of women coming, inclusivity from people of color coming, inclusivity of the people of much younger age coming. And lastly, even the transgender ratio in the corporate boardroom have started to increase. The number of transgender in the corporate in 2010 was 0. The number of transgender in the corporate, be it listed or an unlisted company worldwide, is now close to touching 50. LGBTQ plus, near 0. But of course it is very difficult to understand the LGBTQ plus because the sexual preferences will always not be announced. But still, whatever is announced, it is significantly high in the boardroom. So the diversity in the leadership level and the projected diversity in the leadership level also is to a large extent bringing in an uncertainty, not the external uncertainty only. Having said that, I was actually also wanting to make a little survey amongst the B school students, engineering people, 25 to 35 years age, about this topic, asking them if there is an uncertainty and when they become leader, how will they would like to tackle this? Because we got some 7-10 days time in my office, in my previous offices, I wanted to talk to people. So these are the kind of answers that I got, and this is something which we will be passing on to the speakers to comment on also in their speech. Most of the people said, I'm not going to tackle uncertainty, I'm going to create uncertainty. I'm going to create uncertainty, I'm going to fish in the troubled water of uncertainty for a while, then I will leave that space, the others will then be following me, I will create another uncertainty, I will again fish in the troubled water, then, so I will not be following uncertainty, I will be creating and I will be leading uncertainty. One of the reply that I got. I also asked that if there is no uncertainty and if everything is steady, then what kind of leadership will you then at that time be enjoying? He said, uncertainty will be my strategic driver. Without uncertainty, this was a guy of around 35-year-old, he was saying, I will not survive. I will survive only if there is uncertainty because these will be my strategic ingredient to win. I also asked some of the people that what would leadership therefore mean to you? He said, leadership is not a matter of any governance to me at all that I need to control anything. Leadership to me will be that how soon I can actually adapt myself to a change and make others change and be resilient. So today, to him it was like I may be the president, tomorrow I may be something different. So how soon can I make myself adaptive to or be resilient to adapt myself to some change situation? So and they also mentioned that I would love to work in an organization where the structure will be liquid-like. So I said, what does that mean? I being a baby boomer, 60 age, that I thought it's a hierarchical, monolithic structure that I would love to have always worked in. My boss, I would love to go to that position, his boss. He said, liquid structure means events and the data will decide what structure that particular organization at that time will be following. And the foremost thing that came out from all my interviews of these people are that for an uncertainty, I will be morphing myself so much, and you guys cannot, you baby boomer guys cannot, he said, because you are too passionate and you are too attached to something. You have to be only passionate, they told me, to the ethos, to the purpose, to the objectives of the organization, not to any of the immediate short-term, interim, mid goals or quarter-by-quarter goals. And you are too passionate about that. We guys are not passionate about that. Now these are the kind of views that generated that we got. I also felt sometime there are two people from on my two sides who are to a large extent I can consider from the brick and mortar organization. Is this uncertainty as much in a brick and mortar organization as in a more upcoming tech-oriented biodiversity organization, more in the carbon kind of an organization, carbon, the newer kind of carbon trading, newer technologies, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Google kind of organization, all these uncertainties will be to the same degree in a brick and mortar organizations also. So these are some of the things that was going through my mind. Now, here I will stop. my objective was to set the tone for the discussion. With that, I will first pass on to Mr. Sandeep Kumar for your 15-minute talk.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Ambarish, and thank you, CMA, for inviting me. Before I begin, I'll give you a bit of a sense of what my structure of my, today's conversation is going to be. First is, how many of you have heard of Guy Kawasaki? He worked with Steve Jobs. He's now a Google evangelist or whatever they call it. I am from a very traditional brick and mortar industry, so I don't understand, but I heard him saying I'm a Google evangelist. And earlier he's worked with Apple. So he's a prolific speaker, TEDx speaker, is very good on technology side. So I was hearing one of his talk, and he says, I follow the principle of 10-20-20. He says, most speakers suck, so therefore I try and ensure that I am better prepared, but if I suck, then at least the audience knows how long I suck. So I was pretty impressed with that statement, so I said, okay, what is that? So he says, I cover 10 points, so the audience knows on which point I am and how long I am going to keep them bored. The second point is I don't exceed 20 minutes. And the third is if I'm using a slide, then my font is 20. So I don't know how many of you use slides with 20, which means there are very few words. It's not a congested slide. Well, I don't have any slide presentation, but I'm going to be following a slightly different methodology, not 10, but I'm going to cover a couple of key trends because people talked about future, uncertainty, and leadership. Now, Mr. Koushik Chatterjee very much covered, a lot of things which I wanted to cover, and then I was left wondering what I should speak. Also, he happens to be the chairman of my company. So I couldn't say much to him that don't speak, but anyway, his not being there has given me the liberty. Now, so that's the second part. So I'm going to talk to you about a couple of key trends which you would be already aware of. So I'm not going to tell you something very new, but maybe we can, ignite some questions from there. And then maybe we can talk about a little bit about what the leadership of tomorrow should be. In fact, I think a lot of it is required for today's leadership as well. So let me begin by, highlighting these couple of trends. The first one, and I think he did mention about it, digital and AI. So digital has seeped into virtually every aspect of our lives, we know it, and driven by the confluence of new technology like AI and cloud, new architecture, like the APIs, and new ways of building software like Agile. So this is a statement borrowed from one of the books, so don't worry. But this is just the beginning. As newer technologies evolve, and we have seen how Gen AI can make us suddenly occupying the mind space of every business leader. We are using ChatGPT and others, Copilots and others extensively. But all those students who write applications and statements of purpose, be mindful that now the universities are beginning to check with another AI tool whether you're using AI or not. So be very careful. So the rapid pace of technological advancements demand that leaders of tomorrow, or in fact I would say today, first of all stay informed. Being part of the baby boomer generation, it's not easy. So what do? So we have got youngsters who teach us. So there are dedicated reverse mentors which we have in our company. And let me tell you, so they are the mentors and we are the mentees. I also have one. In fact, I have two. But the difficulty is that the mentees often don't find the time because they are so busy. So the baby boomers are still stuck in that old age. So it's not easy for the mentors to teach them. And this is teaching about digital. So what I also find that most of the time, the mentees are asking, tell me how to install this app on my mobile phone. I said, The mentor-mentee relationship has been created to solve business problems and to see how digital can be adopted to solve those problems. So we are not going, at a pace that I had wanted, but still it's the right direction. So, the fact is that everybody is now investing in digital, but I think what's the need is how do you build differentiating capabilities, both organizational and technological. In fact, I'm in this business of selling steel. My company does processing and then we sell steel. And every week, every Tuesday that we have a meeting and with my colleagues there, they say, you see, competition has dropped prices. What do we do? Next, the price is very difficult. So I'd hardly get to see the good news. I mean, recent phenomena, I think particularly in H1 was bad. So I keep saying, how do we differentiate? How do we differentiate to ensure that the customer takes material from us on a preference and pays us a premium? It's the same thing for leaders. How do you differentiate in your capabilities? All of you, and I'm referring to the students or even my colleagues in the corporate sector, how do you differentiate amongst yourselves? What capabilities do you have that your other colleagues do not have? So if everybody is doing the same thing, then there is no difference. Of course, the difference will come in execution, and the difference will come in how you handle things. So then that also brings me to the aspect of what are the core capabilities that a leader should have. And it's a traditional capability, but primarily what I see is that often we select leaders, and when I'm saying we, I mean in general the corporate world, based on know-how, technical capability, experience, and the familiarity with and experience with the industry. But my view, and I mean, I'm not telling something radically different, is that there are three core capabilities that a leader should have. One is, of course, the functional expertise. You must know, if you are in marketing and sales, you must understand, commercial. But more than that, what we call as IQ, cognitive ability, the ability to do analytical reasoning, and many of the students would know they go through these psychometric tests and all these exams that you appear for, whether it is SAT or GMAT or whatever. So the analytical skills are tested. And the third one is emotional quotient. Again, nothing new, but how many companies have leaders where EQ is preferred over, let's say, IQ and functional skills or experience in the same industry? So that's a question for us to ask. You find that quite often in the European company, in the American companies. In fact, when Tata Steel acquired Chorus, there was a French gentleman called Philippe Varan. He came in, so he was the managing director of Tata Steel Europe, what we call earlier Chorus. He came in from, not from a steel industry, but he was the CEO of Pechini, which I think, if some of you know, is a lead company, some non-ferrous metals company. So somebody can say, of course, metals. Then when he left Tata Steel Europe, he went and joined one of the automotive majors. Completely different industry. Of course, the value chain is upstream and downstream, so that's understandable, but no connection. So that aspect of it, of working in different industries, because you have leadership capability, and what does leadership capability mean is, as I said, functional skill, cognitive skills, and emotional quotient. So EQ and is the most important. The students would know more as they study more, and I would quote from the Harvard Business Review, which says that EQ is most important, while for the other two, threshold capability is what is needed. So if you don't have a minimum functional capability and cognitive capability, you're not considered. That's a filter. But if you need to go up the ladder, then you must have a high EQ. In fact, it says EQ is twice as important as the other two ingredients. So, so let me relate to what it means. So, and expand this a bit. So one of the my CEO friends once told me that when he enters a business meeting, he goes well prepared, and he wants to make sure that he has better grasp of things and knowledge than all his colleagues who are part of that meeting. So I was just wondering, and I keep changing industry, even within Tata Steel, I have been rolling every maybe 3, 4, 5 years, and my industries have been different. So my knowledge is very limited. So how do I kind of differentiate? How do I defend this? And I always defend this by saying that my job is not to be the most knowledgeable person in my organization. My job is to hire the best guys who are better than me. So long as I am doing that and I leave them to their job, I think I am doing a good job. So that's the way, I look at it. So then what do you do if you have got knowledgeable guys and experienced guys having the right functional skills? So our job is only to nudge my colleagues, my team members, ask them the right questions, ensure that they take the right decisions, and they optimize the corporate KPI. Often in a large company, you'll have local KPIs, and leader of that function, or let's say a profit center, or TV Srinivas is the leader of a profit center. I don't mean any disrespect to you, but I'm just generally saying, functionally, people tend to have local KPIs. How do you optimize the corporate KPIs? So this also reminds me of what Andrew Carnegie once said, and he says, I wish to have as my epitaph, and what does he want? Here is a man who was wise enough to bring into service men who knew more than he. Okay? So that's Andrew Carnegie, and maybe, my thoughts match with his, but doesn't make me another Andrew Carnegie. So that was on, on leadership and the digital and technology aspect that I was trying to talk to you about, refer to you about. Let's come to the other one, another interesting aspect, another trend is on sustainability, and Mr. Chatterjee referred to that quite a bit on that. But I would just like to mention a few things and bring some interesting aspects here. Climate change today is one of the biggest challenges for human society. And how humanity can escape the wrath of Mother Earth as it gets hotter with increased carbon emission is the biggest challenge. I don't know how many of you read that book by David Wallace, The Uninhabitable Earth. He says we are adding carbon at a rate at least 10 times faster than at any time in human history before industrialization. In fact, more than half the carbon that has been added on planet Earth has happened in the last 3 to 4 decades. And he further says what it means, we are on track to cross not 1.5, 2 or 3, but 4 degrees by 2100. So if you have some background of what the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement said and what the climate scientists are saying, that if you cross 2 degrees, hell will break. He says, forget 2, we are going to cross 4. The trajectory is not bending. So what does it mean? It means that whole regions of Africa, Australia, and the US, and parts of Asia and South America would be rendered uninhabitable by heat, desertification, and flooding. What does the UN have to say? It says 200 million climate refugees by 2050. So maybe 25, 26 years down the line. So all you Gen Zs, beware. I don't know whether I'll be there, whether the baby boomers will be there, but you imagine what kind of a future we are talking about. So therefore, leadership in the future, and why future today, must align with global calls for sustainability and social responsibility and drive net zero. And Mr. Chatterjee talked about 2045 as the target for Tata Steel, especially considering the hard-to-abate sector. There's no technology which can really today get you out of and get you to net zero currently using the traditional technology of blast furnace in any steel plant. So what do you do? The other aspect of sustainability and on the social part, I would just like to mention that the rising levels of inequality around the world is leading to increased social strife. You saw that in Bangladesh. It's only a reflection of what the economy or the people are going through. Okay. So what we will find is that employees, society, and government all will expect businesses and therefore business leaders to become more and more socially responsible. And we heard about the Kalinganagar project and what happened. We took 6 years or 7 years to get people around. I'm talking about Tata Steel. But for many companies, and there was a question, how do you compete with unethical organizations? For many organizations, this may appear as distractions, and therefore something which we will handle when the time comes. But for others, it's also an opportunity to be leveraged for both society and the planet and for themselves, because the organization will also reap benefits. How? Social license to operate. Besides, the Gen Zs, and I hope and I sincerely believe the Gen Z believes in that, will get attracted to socially conscious organizations, companies with a purpose and not merely money. Today, I see money is a big factor. They also need money, but they also ask you to become socially conscious. Okay? So it's both, it's not only one. So considering this, what is it that future leaders should have? Well, I have a number of points, but I'll keep it short. Agility and adaptability. Leaders must be agile, able to pivot strategies quickly as changes happen. Not easy. We see that all the time, especially in large organizations. It tends to become bureaucratic. Resilience and crisis management. We have a crisis every now and then. The supply chain crisis arising out of Ukraine, Russia, and subsequently Israel, Hamas, the war. So how do you quickly, so suddenly you find through the Red Sea, there are no containers or no cargoes coming. I have a project in the western part of the country, and it's delayed by a month because the cargo will take a longer route. Now, how do you handle this? Because it's outside your control. And we are not even talking about the 2008 Black Swan event. It's something which keeps happening. So we need to be agile in our response, and we need to be aware. Then, of course, I would talk about inclusive leadership and collaboration. Then purpose-driven approach, which we talked about. And finally, the fifth one is continuous learning and innovation. I think this is most important. All of us need to learn, continuously learn, because the only thing that is constant is change. And we don't know how things will change and how many of us will be out of our current jobs if we don't learn. So that's the most important aspect of a leader, is to adopt a growth mindset, embrace lifelong learning, and encourage innovation and experimentation within teams. So to conclude, in an uncertain world, the future of leadership requires a blend of emotional intelligence, I talked about EQ, adaptability, and a forward-thinking mindset. Leaders who can embrace change, prioritize people, and align their organizations with global trends will be able to drive sustainable success. So, what else should the leader have? So, high on energy, open to ideas, focus on continuous learning, as I mentioned, and most importantly, help their team members to develop as leaders. So mentoring and coaching their team. So that's it from my side. But before I conclude, let me read out what Charles Darwin said. It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one that's most responsive to change. Human beings have been the most responsive to change, and that's how we have survived till now. But what the future holds for us is uncertain, and leaders, whether business or political or societal, will have to manage that change adroitly to be able to survive and thrive. Thank you very much, CMA, once again, and thank you all for patient hearing.
Thank you, Sandeep. I think you really touched upon a lot of points related to the future leader. Before I go to you, I'll just have one or two questions, Sandeep, just because I'm quite inquisitive and curious about it, not to really counter the view. But since morning we have been hearing anyway about the greenness, sustainability, the carbon. That's one thing which has possibly occupied 70–75% of the discussion that we have in the last 1 hour. So, and that's no more an uncertainty, therefore. That can still be considered as a challenge, but it's not an uncertainty. People have to do and grapple with the challenge in their own ways. But then there are many uncertainties which we do not know, which may be. Even there are, the term which is beaten to death is geopolitical uncertainty, but that also is no more an uncertainty because the consecutive war after war has more or less given a kind of a resilience to the organization. They know how to do their contingency planning and all that. IT and technology definitely bringing in some uncertainty, but the point that you made, and which we're hearing also, that agility, adaptability to the various kinds of uncertainties that may be suddenly hitting you on your face is very required. Now, compared to the baby boomer, do we feel that ingrained with the millennials or the next gens, the potential of being agile and adaptability is higher? Can they change faster? And also, is this something that can be inculcated or put into somebody by any education? Like, can I train somebody to be agile? Can I train somebody to be adaptable?
So I'll slightly flip your question and answer in a slightly different way. I'm reading this book by Professor Carol Dweck on mindset. I don't know how many of you have read that. Very interesting. She says, anybody can learn anything. So I said, I love music, but I have no sense of how to, play. So I was trying to read through the book, and then she says, let's say drawing. So my painting and drawing is also horrible. Then she says, drawing or, this artistry work is not about a natural ability. It's about shape, size, and geometry, which is very much learnable. So first thing which I learned from that book is everything is learnable. I didn't know. I thought you come with an innate ability to sing. So she says, yes, people will come with that innate ability, but only if you train. And she gives a tremendous example. She says Picasso, for the first 10 years, had no sense of what he was doing. Absolutely no sense. And she has given several other examples. I hope they're right, but she's a very respected Stanford professor. So when you say learning, yes, I think anybody can learn, but the younger generation, of course, has an advantage. They are more energetic, they are more curious, they've got the exposure which we did not get as baby boomers, and therefore their chances of their ability to adapt and learn is far higher. But just to take on that point on uncertainty, climate change is known, but what is uncertain is where it will happen. Will it happen in Bangalore or Calcutta? We don't know. When it will happen. So, to what extent it will happen? We have all been hearing news in Calcutta, and I keep getting worried when it will happen in Calcutta. So, there is an uncertainty about that. Similarly, when we talk about digital and AI, there is an uncertainty how it will impact. What will AI do? And there are both sides. So, just to clarify, this is what I meant.
Thank you. I mean, just for the information of the people who are here, a few months back, 10, 11 months back, we organized a seminar where Sandeep also came and spoke. That seminar, we actually wanted from my own consulting and research firm, think tank, we wanted to do it, but we just thought that we'll make it a very philosophical, erudite kind of a subject, so we actually brought the subject of intersection of materiality and morality in corporates. So just thought that there will not be much attendance because it will be very much of an abstract in nature. We also borrowed some of the concepts from the German philosopher Hegel and tried to modernize that Hegelian concept from an enterprise perspective and try to make it a very abstract, abstruse kind of a thing. It was attended by around 125 people. Sandeep also was a very key speaker there. After the session, in the LinkedIn group and in the various group, the questions that were bombarded and continuously coming to us was from the people of age group of 35 to 45 on this intersection of materiality and the morality to combat the uncertainty of the future. And the viewpoint that was emerging in that was that these guys said that we will be dispassionate about any product, we will be dispassionate about any business model, we will be dispassionate about the profit or any kind of materiality, but to combat to that uncertainty, the agility according to them will come that we will be completely dispassionate about anything, but we will be only passionate about the purpose and the value of that organization. So that was emerging not from the audience there, but post that interaction when we formed a group for the people, students, mid-managers level to contribute, and that's what coming up, that the agility will come from a slight trace of iota of dispassion to any all throughout inherited or legacy business models or products or pricing or any kinds of operating procedure. But the purpose of an organization should stay, and that will help them to be agile. Now with this, I will now move to you for your discourse of 15 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you so much, CMA, for inviting me. It's a privilege to share the dais with such esteemed panelists. So the topic for the day today is key skills for future leaders for navigating uncertainty. As Stephen Covey said, if there is one thing that is certain in business, that's uncertainty. So yeah, much has been already been said and by Ambarish and by Sandeep about the various skill set required. I'll just touch upon three points on this. We all love watching movies, so okay. Let's start with a movie which was based on uncertainty. We all know about the 2008 financial crisis. A lot of movies were made on that episode. One movie was The Margin Call. If you haven't seen it, please do watch it. In one of the scenes, the character of John Tald, he was the CEO and the chairman of a large investment bank, which was in the middle of the crisis. And he, during the crisis, he calls his whole team in the boardroom, and he just tells them, "Do you all know why I'm sitting in this chair? I mean, why I earn the big bucks and not you guys? I'm here for only one reason. I'm here to guess what the music might be, what the music might do a week, a month, a year from now. That's it, nothing more." That's visioning. So a key trait for leaders to manage uncertainty is visioning. If you remove all the layers of qualities of a leader, this is the single most important skill that will remain at the core. As a leader, if you don't have a clear direction, that somehow trickles down to your entire organization. A lot of people confuse visioning with missioning. A mission is more of an effective strategy, whereas a vision is kind of foreseeing what the future can be and how you can articulate that for your team members. Examples of visionaries, of course, we have Steve Jobs sharing a story of his. In 1979, Steve Jobs and his Apple team, they visited Xerox, which was a pioneer of technology that time, for the technical center to look at the new advancements in technology. So there's a lot of things in that room. In one corner, there was this one computer sitting there. It was called the Alto. And the Xerox guy said, "No, this is something which is not very great, and we have kind of discarded it." When Steve came back to Apple, he told his team, they have no idea what they have created. And then he used that, and then he created the Macintosh. And we know the rest is history. So that is what a visionary can do to kind of build the company. We have multiple examples. We have Tesla, we have Google, we have the Ubers, the Airbnbs. All of these companies have either successfully navigated uncertainty, or they have disrupted the normal and then created uncertainty for others. So yeah, that's about the first point. The second point I would like to touch upon as a leader, the requirement would be emotional intelligence, or EQ, which has always been touched by the fellow panelist. So as a leader only, there is so much you can do. You always need to rely on your team to take your vision forward. Earlier, the leaders were expected to drive a team of followers. Today, the leaders are expected to build accountability and self-awareness, value and foster trusting relationships, and understand and regulate emotions in the most positive ways. The leaders with a high emotional intelligence can understand the dynamics of emotional interactions and inspire those around them to execute their vision. Ambarish talked about the various demographics. Even I have some stats on this. Maybe some of it would be repetition, but yeah, I would like to just mention some of the points here. the leaders need to navigate through the shift in generations, as we all know. Back in 2017, Gen Y, which was people born from 1981 to 1994, they formed the highest share of the workforce. While 3 years from now, which is 2027, Gen Z would be the dominant workforce. Now, as leaders, we need to work with the Gen who's working in our team right now as to what are the values they value. There was a survey by an advisory platform called Intelligent, and they surveyed about 1,000 companies as to what are the motivators. 75% people said that 75% companies said that the Gen Z workforce had unsatisfactory performance. Now an entire generation cannot be incapable. So of course it's upon us as leaders to identify what are the right motivators. So McKinsey had done this study on the Gen Z motivating factors. Interesting results. 93% prioritize of Gen Z people, they prioritize impact on society. 77% prioritize work-life balance. 77% prioritize diversity and inclusion. 70% mental health, and only 60% competitive salary. If we compare this with the earlier generation, the baby boomers, job security and salary were the only two factors. The remaining were not even there. So as leaders, we need to appreciate the changing demographics, the changing preferences, and adapt accordingly. By 2035, Gen Alpha, they will become the dominant workforce, the people who are born post 2009. And then the leaders will have to adapt to their needs, whatever they might be. We don't know what that right now. That brings me to the third point of agility and embracing change. As Winston Churchill very wisely said, to improve is to change. To be perfect is to change often. The speed of disruption and uncertainty has accelerated now more than ever, and leaders have to be prepared to embrace the change, to survive and become agile and to get ahead. We all know about Kodak. Kodak was a household name in photography. In 2012, they filed for bankruptcy because they didn't adapt to the changing environment. Another example would be a Netflix. Netflix was a DV rental service, as we all know. But with the changing environment, they pivoted their business model, and then now we know where they are. So as far as changing and embracing agility is, we don't need to make perfect decisions every time. Rather, we need to be decisive, that is, make decisions quickly, confidently, and consistently. And then embrace the unknown with confidence. That is the best we can do in terms of agility to navigate that. US car market was dominated by GM, Ford, and Chrysler. They didn't see Toyota coming with their cost-efficient cars. That disrupted them. Today, Toyota is in the same spot. Toyota has been dethroned as the biggest car maker from Chinese EV companies like BYD. So that's the power of change and how you have to manage yourself. We have all touched about technology, the role of AI and AI ML in terms of how we can change the way we do things. And we have seen companies like Amazon, Tesla, Microsoft use it to their advantage. So yeah, that would be all from my side in terms of the 3 skills for leaders to navigate uncertainty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudary. Good thoughts, good ideas. Just one thing I'm curious to know from you, that you gave examples from Microsoft to Tesla in terms of uncertainty, combating the changes, but also there is a general perception that go around, which I slightly touched upon. I'm repeating that again. There is a feeling that organizations like, say, Microsoft, NVIDIA, Patagonia, or in fintech, or organizations like BlackRock, service-oriented, product-oriented, newer models, not too asset-heavy industries, these are more creator of uncertainty and more prone to uncertainty than asset-rich industries, deep in construction, rooted in construction, producing products every day that go into our life, become an integrated part of our life, they are not so much worried about the huge uncertainty there. And they feel that we may be a little overdoing this subject of continuous experimentation with business models, and these were disruptive. Now, you are, to some extent, a newer company, but still a very asset-heavy, into construction kind of an organization. Do you agree to that, that uncertainty will possibly not be that much for you as it will be for an AI company or for a service sector or a newer business model type of company?
So I would agree to you to an extent that service industries, it's easier to disrupt as compared to traditional companies. But even companies like us, we are into solar manufacturing. The technology changes every 2 years. There are new players coming with new thoughts, and you always have to be on your feet. So I think, yeah, being asset heavy does maybe reduce the chances of the disruption to some extent, but it doesn't eliminate them at all.
Okay, okay. Sandeep, going back to you, again to summarize, because again staying on to the topic that navigating uncertainty is the future leader. And since there are many here in the audience who will be our tomorrow's future leader, what will be in summary your 2-3 key points that you would like to leave here, that in terms of their preparation, wisdom, how to better navigate the future uncertainties?
Yeah, as I mentioned towards the end of my talk, I would say 3 qualities. One is agility, second is continuous learning, and third is adaptability. And I closed with the Charles Darwin's, quote, saying that only the species which adapts to change will survive. So it's the same thing with leaders, that if you can't adapt, then you will not survive. You will not go ahead. So it's the same thing with business, and I'm combining business with leaders, saying that leaders drive businesses, and therefore leaders and their businesses need to be able to adapt and take note of what the changes have happened. And history is replete with examples. Digital camera, Kodak, had come out with it long time back, before it became popular. So I think history is replete with such examples, but we are not able to typically know what's going to happen. Even with ChatGPT, what I understand is that Google had already mastered this, or at least not mastered, at least was able to come out with generative AI, large language models, but they did not go ahead with it. While a small startup, the OpenAI, could do it. So I think agility, adaptability, and continual learning would be the 3 key ingredients for the leaders of today and tomorrow. I would say today and tomorrow there's not much of a difference. The only thing is tomorrow becomes even more uncertain.
Yeah, okay. One more question for you, that our education system, right, from the school to the college to the higher education, MBA, engineering, whatever we do, our education system, particularly the Indian education system, is too rooted and mired in the past. I mean, we keep on building up our engineering to everything from examples of the past, cases, studies, how it has happened, everything has happened. So it doesn't always foster imagination in us. It actually makes us very wise from our past examples, be it engineer or in MBA or whatever it may be. It doesn't really provoke a huge sense of imagination in us, continuously reimagining hypothetical situations and all that. So do you think that in terms of future uncertainty when leaders are coming, these type of education system could be a little deterrent because we are not provoking an imaginative system inside the people and students or the management?
Absolutely. I think the education system of our country is pretty outdated. The new education policy of the government seems to be refreshing change, but to what extent it will have an impact down the line to the every corner of the country and every board and every school, I don't know. I think Mr. Pradeep Agarwal or somebody from the education system would know it better. But I would completely agree with you that the education system needs a radical overhaul, and the methodology of preferring students who have better memory power rather than, imagination and thinking has led to this. But the interesting part is that India has had this problem, but despite that, I think 1 in every 2 CEOs in the US in the technology space is an Indian. Every second CEO. So I think what has happened is that the intense competition in India has built up these, has built up the talent. And if we had also been, right from childhood, been nudged to think more, to create, to become more creative rather than memorize, perhaps you would have seen even a better number. That's my guess, of course.
Thanks, Sandeep. You, again, what would be your last few words for tackling uncertainty, what the newer leaders will be doing? You, of course, are pretty young. You also, of course, belong to that category of new leader only. But you or your colleagues of your age group, what are you thinking about the uncertainty in your industry and how are you preparing? Like, would you be investing a lot, whatever be the country's education system, but will your corporate be actually investing a lot in preparing people for some hypothetical simulations, some black swan simulations, to make them understand that certain things can happen, into more innovation? Will these be the ways to combat uncertainties that you cannot see?
No, absolutely. So there are a lot of trainings we do around, simulating environments, which kind of provokes the thought and critical thinking. And my advice would be, of course, to change uncertainty to curiosity. So don't fear the unfair, that what it is. Be curious, and then willingness to embrace that with the right confidence, because that's a reality. Uncertainty will happen. So rather than fear it and then kind of avoid it, adopt it with full confidence and then go with it. So that should be the mantra.
Thank you. I have been asked not to take any question because we are running short of time. But maybe the speakers will all be here. So therefore, you can ask your questions during the break. Thank you very much for your patient hearing, and definitely thanks in particular to Mr. Chaudary and Sandeep for your wonderful talk.
Well, thank you so much for the session. It was really inciting, enlightening, everything coming in together. And now I'd like to call on Mr. Indranil Banerjee, Vice President, and Mr. Siddharth Roy, former President CMA, to kindly felicitate our esteemed speakers and the session's chair. Thank you.